What will you sacrifice? Welcome back, my fellow gamers. It's me, Amanda. Today we are talking inky and disturbing bendy creepypastas. Yikes! What horror game is your favorite? Number 10, sacrifices required. I never thought I'd get caught. I had only gone out for a minute to make a call, and only because I had to. My mother was in the hospital, sick. I didn't think I'd be missed. But someone told Mr. Drew, and if I wanted to keep my job, they said I would need to offer the studio something. I had already sacrificed everything off my desk at Mr. Drew's request. I had nothing left to give, I stammered. Joey smiled and looked down at my left hand. You're right-handed, isn't that correct? I nodded, nervously laughing. I blurted that, as an artist, sometimes my left hand could come in handy if he was thinking of, taking my hand. Joey shook his head, looking disappointed. Of course, don't be silly. We never think of taking one of our best artists' hands. He turned away. It would be a lot easier for you to stay put if we took a foot. And friends, before I move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Gaming, if you love creepypastas, be sure to show us that you love us by clicking that subscribe button and never miss out on any of our new creepypastas lists. Number 9, ink infection. It started as a crack in the mirror, but it became so much more. At first, Taylor thought perhaps that he had shut the mirror cabinet above his sink a little too hard, but every day the crack in the mirror seemed to be getting larger. The interesting thing though is that despite this jagged black line continuing to spread across it, the mirror pieces seemed to stay put. You'd think they would have fallen off. It was then that Taylor realized the black lines were moving slightly, as though they were breathing. He removed the mirror and began to take a closer look. He ran his fingers over the jagged edges and he cut himself. Wincing, he put his finger in his mouth, but when he pulled it away, he noticed his blood was black. Or it wasn't blood, it was ink. It was already too late. The infection had begun. Number 8, liar, liar. You know how people say if you tell a lie your nose will grow? Well, this is like that, but the punishment for lying is all too severe. My parents raised me on the Bendy cartoons and they used to say Alice doesn't like liars. If you lie, she will come for you. I never understood that until one day I did tell a lie to get out of some work. I wasn't sick like I had said, I was simply waiting for a delivery and too busy to come in. It was a white lie, so despite what my parents had taught me growing up, I thought that couldn't really hurt. As I waited at home, there was a knock at the door. When I went to answer though, I didn't see anyone through the peephole. I opened the door and called out down the hallway of the apartment building. No one there. I shrugged and shut the door, heading back to the living room and my old television set. It had gone to static, but after a few times smacking the television set on its top, the picture was back. Alice stared back out at me, the devil horns on her head seeming to bleed. "You been telling lies?" she asked. Number 7, here comes Bendy. Bendy was always my favorite character when it came to the films that came out of Joey Drew Studios and Arch Films. His fiendish and playful nature was always so much fun and so entertaining. One night when I was heading home from the theater, I noticed that the Bendy sign by the entrance promoting the newest animated film was toppled over. I righted it, looking around for who could have knocked it over. After all, Bendy was such a beloved character. Who, I wondered, would do such a thing? "All good now, Bendy?" I asked as I righted the life-size cutout before exiting. As I closed the door behind me, I thought I heard Bendy whistle in response. Probably just the wind, I thought, but as I looked back over my shoulder, I noticed the cardboard cutout was gone. Number 6, searching. Annabelle had never thought she might end up here. How did it happen? How would she get out? All she knew was that she was looking for something, and there was perhaps a sense that if she found it, she would be set free. But she couldn't remember what she was looking for, and all she knew around her was darkness. Life was exhausting and sad ever since she'd entered the cycle. She remembered the studio and how things used to be. She remembered the cartoons when she was happy. Now, when she looked down at herself, she was only ink and hands, a being that was devoid of any physical characteristics that matched the person she used to be. Now she only knew inky blackness and death. Number 5, demon blood. Joey Drew's sweat dripped off his brow. This was the only way to save his dream. At least, that's what he kept telling himself. It had to be the only way, because if it wasn't, what was he doing? He pressed the pen to the page, but the demon shook its head. It offered a small vial of ink, but it didn't look quite like ink. It was thicker, like blood. "A pact is a pact," the demon whistled. "You'll have your studio and your family. And what will you get?" Joey asked, still unsure about the whole thing. "Oh, me? I will rest easy knowing I've helped make your dreams come true. As Joey signed the page, he noticed that the ink left on the pen snaked up his arm, entering through a cut on his finger. He felt the deal. It was unbreakable, and he felt the cost it would have on his soul. Joey Drew smiled. Number 4. Don't drink the soup. I thought it was so cool that they decided to do a limited release of Bendy's bacon soup from the game, but of course I assumed they hadn't made it just for the promotion of Dark Revival. I only saw a few cans at the grocery store and I asked my dad if we could get some. When we brought it home to have some, I figured it would be like Campbell's soup, but relabeled basically for promotion. But this soup tasted different. It tasted like nothing I had ever had before. It was so good I ate all the cans my parents got on that first day, and the next time my parents agreed to get even more. I found that other food turned to ash almost in my mouth in comparison, and at one point I found the soup was all I could eat or drink. Number 3. The ink flows. Jim hadn't slept in weeks, not since he'd played that game. You know, the one with the ink and the dancing demon. He couldn't sleep anymore. It seemed impossible. Every time he laid down, he felt like he was drowning. And every time he washed up or tried to get a drink, he could smell and taste the ink. He hadn't believed, and perhaps that was why this was happening to him. The ink felt like it was always at the edge of his vision, waiting on the periphery to smother him. One day he almost fell fast asleep, and he woke up violently, spitting ink out of his mouth. When he went to clean it up, it seemingly vanished from his bed and his clothes. But he knew it was real. He could taste it. Was it real? Or was he losing his mind? Jim decided to go for a walk to clear his head. It had started to rain, but he found walking in the rain to be soothing. Except that it wasn't rain falling from the sky. It was ink. Number 2. Don't drink the soup, part 2. After only being able to consume the soup and soup alone, the world's tone began to change for me. I didn't notice it at first because it was so gradual, but eventually it seemed as though the whole world around me had turned sepia. The tone had changed so gradually I hadn't noticed. I was scared to tell my parents when I did because I was afraid they would stop bringing me the soup, so I kept this to myself. Then I began to notice that every now and then my skin would feel wet, despite the fact that it was actually bone dry. My head started to ache and I noticed that my hair was falling out. And one day I woke up and I wasn't in my home anymore. I was made of ink and in a version of my home that seemed to be trapped in the cycle. The soup, I now realize, can't have been promotional. It was the cycle bleeding into our world. It was the ink. I write this from the other side, hoping you, weary reader, will find it and that it will reach you. Whatever you do, don't drink the soup. Number 1. Absence of light. When the lights go out at night, have you ever noticed that you see shadows where none seem to exist? At first, that's what I thought was happening. I was used to the darkness warping my room into something more sinister and monstrous. Hat racks become monsters, clothes on the back of the door become strangers in the dark watching you. If you have a strong enough imagination, any number of horrible things can seemingly be brought to life by the absence of light. But this wasn't something I imagined. At least, I don't think it was. This seemed real. You have to believe me. I played Bendy in the Dark Revival late one night before bed. Turning out the light, I briefly touched some of the objects whose shadows always seemed to haunt me, reminding myself of their true, harmless nature. And then I went to bed. In the middle of the night, I awoke, startled by a nightmare. It was then I felt the hand on my leg. I went to reach for it, but I couldn't. I tried using my left hand, but it also wouldn't move. As I looked from side to side, I saw inky black hands holding me in place. The ink demon seemed to lean in from the end of my bed. Its mouth spread wide in a grin, showing rows of impossibly sharp teeth. It was then I woke up to the bright light of morning. But had I really been asleep? The ink stains on my wrists made me wonder. That's all the time we have for Creepypastas today. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you were at least moderately perturbed by some of these stories, but hopefully not too scared. Which was one of your favorites? Let us know in the comments. Until next time, keep on gaming on. Pew pew!